Another edition of 3D Printing News Unpeeled, brought to you by 3dprint.com. And today we've got some actually very important news about the NIOSH, talking about safety of 3D printing in schools and offices. We also go to talk about, ArcelorMittal entering the metal 3D printing market, and we have 3D Systems putting up a new dental resin, which I think would really expand their business and maybe dental 3D printing as a whole. So the first thing is something that seems maybe a little bit boring, but is long time coming. There's been a lot of talks about ultrafine particles in 3D printing, about fumes in 3D printing, about the safety of 3D printing, especially when, quite correctly so, when we're doing it in homes, in front of families, babies, children, that kind of thing, and also in schools where there's teachers that are getting paid to be there, and small children that may be a bit vulnerable or may have problems with prolonged exposure to 3D printing. Now, not a lot is known, and frankly, a lot of the studies that have been conducted are very terribly done, actually. And we don't really know a lot, and we don't really know a lot about the materials that we are putting out there, and we don't know a lot about the materials that we're breathing in. We think that certain materials are bad, and we think all sorts of things, but yeah, no one really has, in a kind of legislative capacity, looked at that. So now the NIOSH, or the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, which is part of the CDC in the United States of America, is published a really, really important report. And this report is Approaches to Safe 3D Printing, a guide for makerspace users, schools, libraries, and small businesses. Now, like I said, there's not a lot of legislation or laws or frameworks in place for 3D printing in businesses and schools. In the UK, there's some regulations you have to abide by. But generally, nobody's really thought about this. So this is really going to be a very important document, because if you are kind of wanting to do things correctly, if you're a school teacher and you don't want to poison your kids, you have very little other things to turn to besides semi-official videos, or kind of, maybe good advice or maybe bad advice made by other people. So this is going to be a very important document. So this is rules. So the idea is it's very common sense. I really like it. It seems like it's a really healthy set of recommendations. They seem to put a lot of work in this. I think it's fantastic. First, training employees is very important. We know this. Great. You should provide all the SDS, the safety data sheets of all the materials you use. Very normal step, not done by a lot of people. We just have a drawer full of filament and we're just like, oh, I don't know. Right. Now, there's another thing that is a really good principle they talk about, which is that, okay, we know that ABS yields more ultrafine particles. So they suggest always trying to use those materials which generate the least amount of particles. Very logical. Like, for example, PLA tends to generate less ultrafine particles. They also say, no, you should go further and say, look, if they've compared different colors of PLA from different companies, and what they're saying is that certain colors from certain manufacturers have many more particles in them, or release many more particles than others. So we should try to reduce them and try to get healthier filament. Now, this is a new kind of way of thinking. It's super logical, but we don't do this. Everybody's kind of like, well, I'm going to avoid ABS because it gives me headaches. But people aren't really thinking very consciously that one filament supplier or one color of the same filament supplier may actually be less harmful. The other thing is that they recommend 6 air changes per hour, or they look at some work. I personally try to recommend people to go for 10 air changes per hour to minimize problems. And they also recommend doing HEPA, putting HEPA filters in, on machines and enclosures and things to reduce particles. They suggest running printers under a fume hood and make local exhaust ventilation. Like, these are kind of like these ventilation devices. They made one right in front of us. You see it in the picture. And essentially, it's an exhaust device right on the printer. Now, I don't know what that'll do with the printing itself. I don't know what that'll mean with certain shapes, or if that thing will hit certain shapes, or if it will kind of really inhibit your printing. I've never even seen one of these, to be honest. I know a lot of people that have enclosures on their printers and ventilate those enclosures, but or that put them under fume hoods. But this is new for me, so I think this is a great idea to get these particles where they're made, essentially, and to suck the hoover them up there and treat them. They said these local exhaust ventilation units capture about 98% of these emissions, so that sounds like a great idea. And they also suggest, more common approaches like ventilated enclosures, things like that. They also do another recommendation I think should give a lot of 3D printing manufacturers pause, and they suggest that Purchasing 3D printers have approval from a national recognized testing laboratory. A lot of people don't do this. They don't pass the printers for the electronic stuff to UL, or they don't look at any kind of testing results. And I think this is a really great way to show people that you care and show people that you're a good operator that wants to be used in the classroom. And they also suggest something that's going to be very difficult for us, which is the general principle of keeping people away from 3D printers. That's what they want, and it makes a lot of sense health-wise. A lot of people like to show these things off, have them running in bedrooms and dens and classrooms and stuff. So I'm not sure how how well that's going to work, but it's great to see somebody working on this. I really would like to thank the CDC and NIOSH for making this. I know they've been working on this for years. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it's great, especially when kids are concerned. We cannot be from our little hobby / $15 billion industry, we cannot be making children sick with a filament. This is impossible, guys. We have to do something really good to stop this. And I think the NIOSH is doing this, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. So wonderful news, at least from my point of view today. Other great news is the ArcelorMittal, which is one of the largest metal companies in the world, steel companies in the world, is joining the metal powder business. And ArcelorMittal has actually been doing a lot of testing, Aviles in Spain, using really large machines, running them really quickly and really in very enterprising ways for many years. I think since at least 2015 or something like this. And they've been working on having a kind of metal development center there. So it's not a surprise that they would finally join the metal powder business. And this is good news, I think, to have another big player in there besides Höganäs and Sandvik, and Carpenter and all the other guys. It's good to have competition at that level. I'm a little bit more skeptical about these, all these small fly-by-night kind of powder companies. I don't think they really bring a lot of innovation. They haven't up until now. But specialist powder companies that really drive us forward, or big players that can really put in a lot of R&D and stuff, that could be very, very exciting. They hope to make powder from recycled scrap, so that can be really good for the environmentally conscious. And they're also making powder for binder jetting, LPBF, and DoD. They're going to be starting in Aviles. They're going to be starting a atomizer. They're going to be building their own atomization line, and the atomization line is capable of doing anywhere from 200 kilos, which is great for small batches that can do this, to 3 tons, and they should be able to produce about 1,000 tons a year, which is enough to get them started. So I think this is really good news that ArcelorMittal is joining the industry, and hopefully they'll bring some innovation and get some really good high-quality powders. The next news is another material thing. That's what 3D Systems has released. It's NextDent material, NextDent Base, and has gotten the FDA 510K approval or clearance to use this material. Now, this is an expansion. We also know that competition in vat polymerization is heating up in dental. From just using for few dental models, it's being used for lots and lots of stuff in the mouth and lots and lots of stuff in patients. Hopefully this will be safe in the long run. And this is a great sign where we're moving into full and partial removable dentures. And the company says that it's high break resistant, it's very precise and very repeatable. And it comes in 4 gingiva shades to give more realism. This is a really interesting market that's really holding up, and I hope it keeps holding up with very safe, very usable, very application-specific materials. That would be absolutely wonderful. Anyway, this is it for today. My name is Joris Peels. This is 3D Printing News Unpeeled. Have a great day.